So I've had the Garmin Forerunner 255 Music in black. I've had this watch for about 3 months. So I'm going to share with you kind of pros and cons that I've come across so far. So I'm going to jump straight into some pros. So the first pro is going to have to be it's really comfortable. Despite it being a slightly bigger watch, it's actually really comfortable to wear. And the strap almost feels quite stretchy. So in a way it kind of moves with your body. So in a way you can't really feel it while it's on your wrist. So that's what I really like about the Forerunner 255. The next pro is that it's super lightweight. It's only 49 grams for the bigger version. Considering it's not a small watch, it's actually really light in weight, so that makes it comfortable to wear as well, and you just generally don't feel it on your wrist when you're wearing it. The next pro is that it has good battery life. I just turn everything off. I just mostly use it for kind of day-to-day tracking and tracking my runs. So I don't usually have anything turned on because my purpose for the watch is solely for running generally. So yeah, I don't usually have much turned on, so it doesn't really drain the battery. I do find that once it's charged up to about 100%, it kind of goes down quite quickly. So it drops down to about 60-70% in the first maybe 2 or 3 days. So it feels like it's not going to last very long, but then after that it slows down. So it doesn't actually go down as quick afterwards, which is kind of a bit strange. But on average, it's supposed to last up to about 14 days. I can normally get about a week and a half or even 2 weeks. At the moment, I've not been running as much as I used to. So I've been getting closer to maybe 2 weeks battery life before I need to recharge. So battery life is really good, and that's definitely a pro on this watch. Besides from running, I also do strength training and home workouts. So I do weights and squats and exercises like that. So I do track them on the watch, but I don't necessarily try to be very accurate. So I just start a workout and I start each set, and then I just let the watch kind of do its thing, and it's mostly just to track that I've done the strength workout rather than being accurate in terms of what exercises I'm doing. But the watch does actually manage to identify some of the workouts that I do. So when I do kind of squats, or if I do any sort of exercise that requires weight, it does actually roughly track a lot of the workouts, which I'm quite impressed about. I guess the watch knows that you're doing strength workouts, so based on your movement and how you're lifting your arm, it tries to figure out what exercise you're doing. It's not always as accurate, and obviously it only works with the arm that you're wearing the watch on. So if you're lifting dumbbells, it only tracks the side that you're wearing the watch on, so you kind of have to adjust the amounts that you've lifted, but that's not a problem at all. Like I say, I don't use it to accurately track my workouts, but I'm surprised and impressed that it actually picks it up. The GPS tracking seems to be very accurate compared to the Fitbit that I've had previously. A lot of the times with the Fitbit, it would not detect GPS and it would randomly pause my workout because it couldn't detect GPS. So I ended up turning it off completely because it always just ended up pausing it when I didn't want it to. So I feel like the Garmin actually tracks GPS quite accurately. I've not tried and looked into it properly, comparing it with something else, but I think it's accurate enough to know kind of what distance I've ran, so that to me is good enough. The other pro for me is that it doesn't have a touch screen. I know some people probably think that's a con, but for me, I don't like the idea of accidentally touching things on the screen or accidentally touching the screen and stopping the workout. And also in the winter when you wear gloves, it's really hard to then kind of trying to use touchscreen. I know the new version Forerunner 265 has touchscreen, but I think you can actually turn it off. But for me, not having touchscreens is actually a pro. And if you've ever tried to use a touchscreen while you have wet hands, like in the rain or maybe in the shower or something, it just doesn't work. So for me, I prefer buttons. I also prefer the screen on the Forerunner 255 compared to the new Forerunner 265 where it has the AMOLED on the screen. I like the idea of having the screen on all the time, but I think it works a bit differently with the newer version of the Forerunner. So for me, I like to turn the light off on my watch, but I can still see it in daylight normally, and I generally don't really need the light on to kind of see the screen with the Forerunner 255, and I really like that about it. And also it makes the battery last a bit longer, not having kind of light on or the screen come on. It's just a different screen, and for me, I prefer the 255 over the 265, and it just works really well. I like that you can change settings on both the watch and Garmin Connect. Some of the features you can only change on the watch, like a watch face, but most of them you can change on both kind of devices. whether you're on a computer and log on or you just using the app. So I think that's a really nice thing, that you're not limited to where and how you can kind of change settings quickly. Another pro is that everything just seems to work as it's supposed to. I know if you buy something as pricey as this, you would expect it to work, but some things, or a lot of things these days, aren't always the case where things just work. So I'm impressed so far that everything just seems to work. There's no freezing, or there's no kind of lagging or anything, and everything just works, and to me that's a big pro. Let me know in the comments what tracker you use, whether you just use your mobile phone, or maybe you have the Garmin Forerunner 255 as well, or maybe you've splashed out and got the Forerunner 265. Let me know in the comments, I'll be interested to know. As always, having so many pros, there's always going to be some cons, so I'm going to share with you a few things that I've noticed that it's probably worth just bringing up, just so you have an idea of some of the things that I've noticed. First con is that you have to set a bedtime if you want to use the sleep tracker. So you kind of have to set a range between kind of the time that you go to bed and the time that you're likely to wake up. So I feel like it's a little bit restricted, because I generally don't always sleep around the same time, and I also don't always wake up at the same time. Whereas when I had the Fitbit, it was quite good at tracking my sleep, so I didn't have to set times, and it would usually pick up when I was asleep and when I was awake. And also with the Garmin, once you set the bedtime, it doesn't really track if you have a nap in the day, whereas I felt like the Fitbit did that quite well. So if you kind of work shifts, or you work night, or your sleeping pattern is very different, it's going to be quite hard to accurately track your sleep with the Garmin. Sometimes I do nap in the day because I sleep so badly, so it would be nice if it tracked it, but it's not a big deal, but it's just something worth mentioning. I've got the Garmin Forerunner 255 music version, and the only reason I got the music version is because I wanted the black colour, and I wasn't going to use it for music, but I did test it out to see what it's like. So I connected it to my Spotify, I've loaded some music onto the watch and tried it out with wireless kind of headphones, but I don't think it's that good. It does cut out randomly, and it's just not very smooth. So if you're listening to music, sometimes it just randomly stops, or it kind of skips a bit, and it just doesn't feel like it connects properly. So I'm glad I didn't buy the music version for the music feature. I still use my phone to connect to my headphones if I want to listen to anything. So it's worth mentioning that the connection with the music isn't great, but that could just be me, because I've not tried it out loads of times. I just wanted to kind of try out the feature at the start. I've tried it a few times, and as I'm running, music just cuts out sometimes, so I just thought that's worth mentioning. The other con for me is that because it's a slightly wider watch compared to my Fitbit, I do find that water gets trapped between the watch and my skin a lot, and it's hard to dry. I know it's like such a minor problem and it's not really an issue, but previously when I had the Fitbit, I felt like I could just leave it on. I would shower and it would be covered in water or rain, and I could just leave it and it would dry out. But I feel like with the Garmin being a slightly bigger watch, the water doesn't dry out and it just sits there. So I feel like whenever I have a shower, I have to take it off and dry it and put it back on. I know, like I said, it's not a big deal, but it is annoying having to do that kind of all the time. Also, sometimes when I wash my hands, water still gets underneath the watch and it gets trapped between the watch and the skin. And again, I have to take my watch off to dry it. It's just, like I say, a minor thing, but I feel like I'm constantly taking the watch off to dry, which is not something that I've had issues with in the past with other watches. The other con for me is obviously it's a very pricey watch. It's quite expensive. I mean, it's worth it and I love it and I use it every day and I feel like it's an amazing watch. I think it's worth the money, but it is very expensive. With the Forerunner 265 coming out, the 255 might be reduced a little bit, but so far I've not really seen the price come down. I believe it's because the 265 isn't really a replacement of the 255. It's more just like a pro version. So if you want some extra features and you want kind of the AMOLED screen, then the 265 is kind of like a pro version as opposed to it being a replacement. So I haven't seen the Forerunner 255 prices come down. So yeah, it is a very expensive watch, but yeah, you have to see what's worth it for you. And another con is that I've had the watch for about 3 months, but the charger has been a little bit temperamental. I've noticed in the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks that the charger doesn't always charge when I plug the watch in. I've tried the suggested cleaning method. I've tried to kind of plug it in different sockets, but I feel like the connection maybe is a little bit lost because when I plug the cable into the watch, it moves a little bit, so I don't feel like it's plugging in properly. So I don't know what it is that is causing it, but sometimes I have to plug the cable into the watch and then lean it a certain way so it gets connected properly and then charged, but then from there I have to not touch it so it charges fully. I have been in touch with Garmin regarding the issue and they have kindly sent me a new cable, but I haven't tried it out yet, so I don't know if that's going to solve the problem. If it does, obviously that would be great. If not, then I have to go back to them and kind of see what they could do or what the issue is, because I feel like at such an early stage having a problem already, it might become a bigger issue over time. So I'll have to wait and see, but to me that's a con that I've only had the watch for 3 months and there's kind of an issue already, but I'll update you on that a bit later when I find out more. So to sum up my thoughts on the Garmin Forerunner 255, there are still so many features on there I feel like I haven't explored or haven't tried out. It's quite exciting to kind of learn new things about the watch and then try out new features that help my running and training. I can see myself using this watch for many years to come. Many years. I've no plans of changing or upgrading or anything. As long as it still works and it doesn't break, I feel like I'll be wearing it and using it for a long time. It really helps me with training and pacing and really encourages me to push myself a little bit, especially with the daily suggested workouts by Garmin. I've used that feature quite a bit, and sometimes when I don't know what I want to do on my run that day, I will just refer to it and see what it suggests, and then yeah, it just encourages me to try something different and push myself a little bit harder. I won't be upgrading to the Forerunner 265 because I'm more than happy with the 255. I prefer the screen on the 255, and I've just overall been very happy with the watch and I don't see the need to change. And also the 265 is even more expensive than the 255, so I'm okay. I hope you enjoyed my video on my pros and cons of the Garmin Forerunner 255. If you have any questions, please leave them down below, and I hope this has been somewhat helpful. Hopefully this has helped you maybe decide if you want to go for the 255 or the 265, or just get the Garmin Forerunner in general. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and if you have any questions, please leave them down below. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on my next video. Bye bye.